Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nick from Arch City Poker and ArchCityPLO.com, and today we're going to talk about how to stop playing weak tight poker. So, this was actually a specific topic request for a video made by Wayne Burton. So, thanks for that request, Wayne. He essentially asked, "How do I shake the old man image? I'm a 70-something, 70-year-old something player. How do I shake that old man image? How do I?" I think he essentially is wanting to get paid off more. Um, Players are probably overfolding to him quite a bit, and that's going to happen in the live community all over the world. You hear the term OMC, Old Man Coffee, which is a stupid, ridiculously stupid term in my opinion, but it's basically representing what Wayne's talking about. You see an older player sit at your table, or if you are an older player, you know that generally when they bet, it's perceived that they have the stones or they just aren't bluffing quite often enough. How do we go about changing that? So you're not gonna be able to change your physical appearance short of, like covering your nose with your shirt, doing the hoodie, the sunglasses, all that BS. But you're gonna be able to shake that image by how you play on the table. And that sounds maybe easier said than done, but there are some simple things you can do. So what I see a lot of players, and this isn't even just older players, but players that are playing weak tight poker overall and have that tighter, maybe older person image. Pre-flop, a lot of times what they do is they split their ranges. So what that means is that they have a subset of hands within their range that they like to limp and probably limp call with. And then they have a subset of a much narrower subset of hands within their range that they're going to raise with. So if you really think about that, that's pretty easy to decipher. If I'm sitting next to you and you limp, I know that you've got some kind of speculative hand. And especially if I'm in position, I'm going to go ahead and raise a lot of stuff and be able to outplay you post flop because you're limping in, you're calling with this weak, wider range. Now, if you raise, then I'm going to be able to actually overfold a lot of hands in my range that I either should consider three betting against better players or possibly consider cold calling, but I'm just not going to give you that action because I know that your range is really strong and I'm not going to attack strength in these live low stakes games. So, first thing you can do, like I said, stop splitting your ranges. Check online, check through some literature. There's so much literature, videos out there on starting hands pre-flop. I'm sure I've got videos somewhere in my channel covering this. But you need to stop splitting your ranges. You need to have like a raise only range essentially. You can do, if you're facing a range, you can do some cold calling. You can do more three betting than what you're doing. I'm going to get to that in a second. But as far as just your opening or your open raising range or your raising range facing limpers, we need to cut the limping. We need to make it to where we have essentially one range. And that's going to build your image as far as you're going to look a little bit more reasonable, a little bit looser, because you're going to be showing up with some combos that maybe you were limping with before. Some common ones I see are like pocket sevens, pocket eights, pocket nines. We don't need to limp those. We can raise those. King, queen offsuit, maybe like ace 10, ace 9 suited. Stuff that's like seems more borderline. You can raise those in a lot of situations. So stop splitting your ranges. Let's get one, linear raising range essentially. Now, the other part about the pre-flop play is, I alluded to this, is three betting. If you are playing weak tight poker, you're obviously probably only three betting like aces, kings. Maybe you get frisky and you throw in pocket queens or ace king. We need to expand upon that. We need to have some combos that balance that a little bit, that make your opponents feel indifferent. Because in poker, my number one goal in poker always is to make my opponent feel indifferent. I want him to always be kind of guessing or unsure of what to do no matter what action I take. The only way that you can accomplish that with any kind of efficiency is by balancing your play at least a little bit. I talk about in the low stakes games, you don't need to balance your play as much, but you do need to do it a little bit if you are trying to shake, a so-called like older man or like weak tight image. So when you go to three bet, instead of just having like aces and kings and like I said, some ace king or some queens, we need to start adding a few combos like ace 5 suited, ace 4 suited. Some of those baby suited aces will work pretty well. You have the ace blocker, you've got a nut suit. You have a hand that you're going to be able to sometimes show and let your opponents know that, hey, like, you're not going to be able to just fold to me every time I three bet because I don't only just have combos at the very top of my range. So Quick recap about preflop play: stop splitting your ranges, condense that into one linear raising range, and then 3-betting, add in a few bluffing combos. You don't need to go wild with this, but you need to at least start adding in a little bit of that to break that weak tight image. Now, post flop, I think most players, they just play too passively overall. It would take a much longer video to go into how to properly play post flop and how to add more aggression to your game. But one simple, I guess, adjustment that you guys can make if you do have this kind of weak tight image is you can get more aggressive with your stronger draws, especially on textures that you feel like your opponent's ranges do not hit that hard. So I'm going to give you a really quick example. Somebody raises from out of position, unknown player, who cares who it is, and you decide to cold call in position, and you feel like you have this maybe older, weak, tight image. Flop comes 10-6-5 with, let's say, a spade draw. So 10-6-5, 2 spades on the board. And the player out of position, they raised from, let's say, under the gun. They go ahead and c-bet. Well, first of all, they really shouldn't be c-betting on this board from out of position. It's not a board, at least that often, if at all, it's not a board that their range does not hit hard enough. If you think about it, they don't have a lot of 2 pairs plus. They have a lot of, unpaired Broadway cards, a lot of high-ranking cards that are in their range that are going to be much more prevalent than like the overpairs or like the ace-10 and king-10. So let's say you cold called with, let's say, like king-jack suited of spades. Let's say you have king-jack of spades and it's 10-6-5. A lot of players in that spot, the more passive players, the weak tight players, they'll just call. They'll think to themselves, well, I got a flush draw, I got 2 overs. I'm going to go ahead and call on the spot. Certainly a profitable play, but a more aggressive player is going to try to take advantage of that fold equity on that texture that your opponent should not hit that hard. So just think to yourself, when you're in a position when you do have your draws, think about the board texture and how it hits your opponent's raising range. And if you feel like it doesn't hit it that often, then go ahead and raise more often. Raise. Take advantage of your older or weak tight image, and you'll be surprised at how often you do get folds, even if you get called, because you're going to be labeled as having like a lot of very strong value hands in your range. You're probably going to get either called or just folded to, essentially. You still have a lot of equity. You've got the flush draw, you got the 2 overcards in that spot. So it's not as bad of a scenario as a lot of you guys think. We can't be scared of, the monsters under the bed, so to speak. So post-flop, get more aggressive with your draws when you feel like the board texture does not hit your opponent's range that hard. Other than that, there's not really a whole lot else we can do. Those main pre-flop changes that I suggested, and then that main post-flop change, that's going to drastically alter your image. Players are going to respect you a lot more. They're going to feel much more indifferent when they're playing against you. That's how you're going to shake that older and or weak tight image. So if you guys have any questions or comments about this topic, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.